This is Live from the Table, the official podcast of the world-famous Comedy Cellar. We are available wherever you get your podcasts, available on YouTube and available on demand on Sirius. We no longer have a regular time slot. We're available on demand. And this is Dan Natterman, Comedy Cellar regular-ish, along with Noam Dorman, the owner of the Comedy Cellar, Perry Alashenbrand with us. All of us are in studio, and with us via the miracle of teleconferencing, we have Ann Bauer. She has written 3 novels, including Damn Good Food, Forgiveness for You. I guess I'll just name the other one, While Right Up the Cupboards, to Forever Marriage. And her essays, travel stories, and reviews have appeared in Elle, Salon, Slate, Redbook, The Sun, The Washington Post, and The New York Times. Please welcome Ann Bauer to our podcast. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
By the way, and my co-host here, Mr. Natterman, has you guys switching cameras? Is written a novel as well, and I have tremendous respect for anybody who can write a novel, and you've written 3. I think that is that's a talent that I can't even imagine myself having with a gun to my head.
It's irrational tenacity.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to imagine characters and imagine things from the character's point of view, and you have to be fun. And you have to have a plot, and the plot. So you should read Dan's book. Like, I don't know if you can see the drawings we have behind here. These are done.
I can't, but I'd love to read Dan's book.
Oh yeah, we'll send it to you. And there's these drawings behind. We have to go on with the show, I know, but these drawings behind me are all done by my stepmother, and she's just an amazing artist. And I mean, you could give me my entire life and put a gun to my head, and I could not ever do that. It's a real talent. It's not like modern art, where it looks like a child could do it. Anyway, so writing a novel, I'm very impressed. All right, you heard that Matt Gaetz, you wrote a column. The column is Why I Voted Against the Democrats. You were a Democrat, I assume, your whole life. You voted for Trump.
More or less. Yeah.
And we're going to get into that. But since I just heard that he appointed Matt Gaetz, or nominating Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General, did you hear that?
I did not. I mean, I was busy, getting ready for you. I missed that news.
So, are you up on that? You know who Matt Gaetz is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And what state is he from? Mike, look, I can't remember what state he's from, but he was accused of sexual improprieties. But more than that, he's just kind of a ridiculous figure in my estimation, and like a Trump loyalist. When I think most of us, even those of us who were feeling
Florida.
like you,
he's from Florida.
All right, Florida, should have known that. Worried about him trying to settle scores with the judicial system, and here's a guy who looks like he'll just do Trump's bidding. So what's your first reaction to Matt Gaetz?
I feel so ill-qualified to comment on any of these appointments. This one doesn't thrill me. I mean, my gut reaction is, oh, really? Yeah. But it's so hard to tell, what's going to unroll from events. And one of the problems that we're having is, the minute Trump does anything, we get 7 sides of news and people prognosticating, often incorrectly. I just don't know. I don't know. I hope there's not churn in the administration the way there was last time. I hope he doesn't appoint a bunch of yes men who then he fires immediately. That would be bad. He promised he wouldn't. I hope that happens.
Yeah, I'm with you. This worries me. So, all right, let's go back to earlier. Yeah. Why was it that you had it up here with the Democrats and you decided to vote for somebody as difficult as Donald Trump?
Yeah, it was a long road. I was a pretty garden variety progressive Democrat living in Minneapolis, writing books, teaching in universities. That was all I knew. It was the right side to me.
You teach humanities? What do you
creative writing, English rhetoric. Mm-hmm. So I taught at Brown for a while. I taught at Macalester College here, originally at the University of Iowa. And, this was my life. These were my people. I trusted them. And then during COVID, I was early to say I'm really concerned about the closure of schools. Everything else I get, the social distancing and the bars and the arenas, oh my God, yes, let's close them down, but children, especially low income children who are hungry, children who might be abused at home, we need to make some provision. And the blowback was so fast and so complete. So I was really early. I was like April of 2020. I lost most of my professional ties. I lost a lot of my community ties, and really found myself adrift, thinking, am I crazy? Am I just saying stupid, killery stuff? Which is what I kept hearing, you're an idiot and you're a killer, and you may as well just go to Trump's campaign. That's the person you are.
Well, you look like a killer, I have to say.
I really, there's a chest freezer in the basement. Don't look in it. But
Can I ask?
Go ahead, finish it. Go ahead. Oh, you can ask Anna.
Well, can I ask? Just you said you were in favor of keeping schools open. How full-throated was your position? Were you simply opening it up for discussion, or were you insisting this is how it must be?
No, I was really just opening it up in April. In April, I was saying, oh, this sounds really devastating. This sounds like it would be so damaging. Could we make provisions for low income children? Could we? Where are they going to eat? Kids who are on free and reduced breakfast and lunch. I raised a pretty significantly developmentally disabled child. I knew what it was like to be a single mother of children who, if you didn't have that school, if you didn't have the support, if you didn't have financial means, this would take you down.
Right.
And I said that. And it was so immediate that I was sort of flushed out of the societies that I'd been in. I was a regular contributor for the Washington Post. That ended that day.
Oh my God.
I was an occasional contributor to many other magazines and newspapers. I never heard from a single editor again. No one who had worked with me. And my friends really said, you've gone off some kind of right-wing deep end, and sent me Facebook memes and things like that about, I just want a haircut and freedom and all that.
Go ahead, sorry. Go ahead.
I spent a really perplexed and kind of devastating spring and early summer. My husband and I both, we happen to agree on this, which, I know a lot of couples.
Is your husband a Nazi also, or just
of longstanding? Yes. Yeah, it's amazing he married a Jew. It's just so strange. But, we agreed on this, but we felt entirely alone, completely. And I eventually went on Twitter, which I'd gotten a Twitter account for a book at some point. One of the books I was trying to tweet, and I was awful at it, and I quit. But I had this old Twitter account, Bauer writer, that I had set up. And I got on and I started looking for, is there any information out there? Should I just go apologize to everyone I know? Am I insane? And I found a few other people, and we started conversing on Twitter, and it was kind of life-saving for me, because at least I felt like, okay, I haven't lost my mind. There is a point of view here. And that's sort of how it started, that I had such a problem with that crushing crackdown on discussion.
Yeah, well, this is a common problem. It's been going on for a long time. Just a couple things happened. What was it today? Oh, we found the headline today also was that Kamala Harris didn't go on Joe Rogan because the progressive people within her campaign found it unacceptable to go on the Joe Rogan show. And this is really something that comes from the left and not from the right. There is no talk show that anybody in Trump's campaign would be offended by, even ones that they probably should be offended by, right? Even like it's very far to the right. That's just not the way they process things. And I had a friend. I think I lost this friend finally. So, RFK Jr., who I'm not a fan of. Anybody listen? I am not a fan.
I get it.
Conspiracy. So he tweeted out, we're going to get fluoride out of the water. I said, oh, brother, fluoride out of the water. And then I sent it to my friend, who's a kind of elite journalist. And then Alex Tabarrok, who's is an economist at George Mason University, very, very level-headed, data-driven guy, tweets out, actually, there's some recent studies which suggest that fluoride might be a good idea to take out of the water. So I'm like, huh? And I looked at the study. I'm like, son of a bitch, lightning strikes. And he even said RFK might be a painted clock. So I sent it to the elite journalist, and he got so nasty with me. We may never speak again. I'm like, dude, what's the matter with you? I'm just like you. I'm just presenting you with a study, and the conclusion of the study is we have insufficient information to judge whether fluoride in small quantities is safe. Now, that's all I need to hear to say I don't want it in my kids' water, right? And unless you can tell me that the study's not reliable, but apparently it is reliable, and they've taken it out in Europe.
Although we grew up all with fluoride and seemed to be.
Well, it reduces whatever. My point is that. No, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying. But my point is that kind of what Anne is saying is that she hears something that, well, you know what, maybe we need to get these kids back in school. And it seems like a non-political data point. Then you think about it and you present it, and they come down on you as if you are making a political point when you're not. You're just looking at the world as an open-minded person who knows that things are not often what they appear and things change. And obviously we're flying blind in a pandemic. And you say, hey, what about this? This says maybe, and obviously there's a big cost to keeping kids out of school. We should consider this. No, we don't consider anything that anybody on the right wing might want. That's really what it is. If they want it, it has to be wrong. And we, cover our eyes and cover our ears, and you become the villain. And we see this over and over and over. And it's, so I say one more thing. So Sam Harris, I recommend very highly. Sam Harris did one of his monologues about Trump's victory. And he said that although we all have read that inflation had a big part to do with why people voted for Trump, that everybody he speaks to who voted for Trump, and I've had the same experience, 100% of the people I'm aware of who voted for Trump all say things similar to what you're saying, that they just had it up to here with the left.
Yeah. The exception being Richard Hanania, who said he voted for Trump for economic reasons.
No, you have to read more of Richard Hanania. Richard Hanania also votes for Trump because, he said, I'm a conservative, is what he said. Actually, that's exactly what he said. He says, listen, I'm a conservative. I like conservative policies. That's what he said. But so yeah,
I'm curious if any of these people have come around to apologize, given the fact that we know now that you were in fact correct in that assessment.
There were a couple who said, oh, look, you were right. Or, now the right people are saying the same thing. But of course, we couldn't have known that at the time. And it was irresponsible to question at that point. No one in my professional life has ever come back. Not a single editor. I actually reunited with an editor who contacted me and said, oh, I agree with you, but that's why she's no longer working on staff for a publication, because, she, like I, kind of fell into that dissenting heterodox space, and we don't qualify.
But whether you were right or wrong is beside the point. You were right to say, let's have a discussion. You were right to say, let's keep an open mind. Whether ultimately that policy was right or wrong is no relevance. Really,
you're right. You're right. What you're saying, but it is relevant in to this degree. It's relevant that they would have you believe that what she was suggesting you keep an open mind about was ridiculous, and the fact that she was right is proof positive that they were the ones being ridiculous, that they were incapable of even seeing what certainly must have been true, that this was something that at least reasonable minds could differ about. And then if both sides agree that it's something that reasonable minds can differ about, then it kind of becomes irrelevant whether you were right or wrong. But the fact that they could not comprehend that they were 100% wrong, and they should have, and there was evidence at the time that they were 100% wrong, to rule this out of the realm of polite conversation. The fact that she turned out to be right makes it impossible for them to look away from that.
And also that we have hard evidence now that violence and abuse, the numbers skyrocketed during that time that the schools
Why did they have the Super Bowl playing? I don't know if we have. I almost got thrown off Facebook for the opposite reason.
No. We know that child abuse.
Oh, is that true?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, because you were right empirically, makes it all the more unlikely that you'll ever see these people again. Nobody wants to.
Yeah. Being right ended up being the worst thing for me.
And for those kids.
And you're so right about the abuse. It was actually that calls to child abuse hotlines went down. That was the sinister thing, was all of a sudden like, oh, look, there's a pandemic. We sent all the children home. And strangely, there's no child abuse anymore. Well, no one was laying eyes on these children or reporting.
Right. So do you want to say something else?
Well, I think, it just struck me as so dangerous not to have the conversation. Even at the very beginning, that was the part that kept me awake every night, was like, this terrible thing is happening, or at least I think it's happening. My husband thinks it's happening. And it's so dangerous that we can't discuss.
So for some reason, early on, when the pandemic was first starting, it was right wing to want to close the schools. I remember, maybe it's because who's going to take care of the kids, whatever. So I don't know if you remember, very early on, the way it was going is that they would wait until one of the schools had a case, then they would shut the school down, then they would clean it, and then they would come back, and at some point it became clear to me that we were heading into a pandemic very early. So I wrote on the local Facebook, I said, why don't we close the school down now and figure out what's going on? Because it seems pretty clear every school's going to get it, but by the time our school gets it, then we know it's too late. By the time we see the first case, it means it's spreading all around. And we were very scared of COVID at the time, and we didn't know that it wasn't dangerous to children. I said, why are you waiting for canaries to die in the coal mine? Close the schools down. Let's get a grip on this, and then we can bring them back if things settle down. Well, the liberal people on my Facebook, they threatened to throw me off. And the woman in charge of the Facebook says, you are not to talk about this again. You're a fear monger. Now, and by the way, I was not saying anything like we're all going to die. Or I was like, let's look at this logically. If we wait until there's a case, isn't that too late? Then I remember saying, and then they bring it home to grandma. Well, we have a lot of people in my town who live with their grandparents or their parents, and then the kids are going to bring it home. Isn't it safer to just shut everything down now? And I could not understand. I still have these messages, screenshots of them, because I saved them because I knew they would be priceless. the anger and the nastiness, as if I had, called somebody the N-word or something. It was absurd. And then somehow it switched, and the people who wanted to open the schools became the concern. It's just what it was. All right.
That is so crazy, because I think we were in the same time period. And I was saying in Minnesota, I'm in Minnesota. Tim Walz closed the schools early. I believe it was March 9th.
Something like that.
And the teachers happened to be on strike in my city anyway. So he was closing schools that were empty already. And then, of course, statewide. But because our Democrat governor was the person who closed the schools, I got the opposite.
Very interesting. So now you also got in trouble for your opinion about you hate the trans people as well. Is that right?
I get in trouble on both sides here. I'm sorry to tell you. I'm serving all comers. I live in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I know a lot of trans people. I love a lot of trans people. I've known trans children. I'm a child of the early 80s. I danced in the streets with Prince back when he was a glyph. It was not with him directly, like he was somewhere in the vicinity. But
the artist formerly known as Prince. The former artist formerly known as Prince.
He is beloved to us.
Yeah, we love him.
But my attitude about trans, and I've said this online, is like, oh my God, I will protect your right to be who you are. And that means surgically transitioned, not transitioned, non-binary, natal male, identifying as a girl, wearing a skirt, don't care what kind of, hormones you take or surgeries you have. It became, however, this codified movement to take all of these kids of all of these different wild, wonderful kind of colors and feelings and pipeline them into a medical process.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where I say, no, people are making money off this. We can't be doing this to children for the benefit of pharma or whomever. I don't want to say who I think is benefiting. And one of the things that gives me great hope is that the plastic surgeons of America said, hey, we don't want to do this anymore. That's not how we want to make our dollars. But
we want to give strippers fake boobs. That's how we want
it. All power to them. Consenting adults. Yeah, but I felt like, we already reached this wonderful point of inclusivity where you can be who you are. And then suddenly young gay kids are being funneled into, no, actually, you really shouldn't be a guy who loves men. You should, let's, call you Stacy and put you through 11 terrifying surgical procedures. And it just felt like it went to this, I'm sorry, it's going to be a little incendiary, transhuman extreme where it was like, oh, no, but we can tinker with that and use our instruments and make this even better. And I'm a great believer in the sanctity of the great variety of humanity, who we are and how we think and how we feel. And I don't want surgeons putting people into chutes and making those decisions.
Well, it's interesting. First of all, just because I always like to blow my own horn, you will remember that I predicted that the first time America sees an XY boxer kick the shit out of a woman on TV, they will turn against this thing. Do you remember me saying that? And that's we did see that. But there is an interesting thing that happens. I hope I can come up with a few examples of where a cause goes so far that it makes the people who used to support it bedfellows with the racists and the bigots, right?
Yep.
So this happened in my father's lifetime. Either my father died like 20 years ago, where my father was civil rights was the most important thing in our home. It just was. That was the issue. Civil rights, Martin Luther King, all of it. And by the end of his life, he had turned against the civil rights movement, not because he started thinking he wanted to see people judged by the color of their skin, but because the civil rights movement had come to stand for judging people by the color of their skin, in his opinion. And all of a sudden, he's nodding with David Duke or something, like, because David Duke wants to get rid of affirmative action, and my father wants to limit affirmative action. I wanted to get rid of it, but wanted to limit its excesses for sure. And now you have a bedfellow, and you see this in various other issues. Andrew Sullivan, the father of gay marriage, is on the side of the people who say that the bakers shouldn't have to make gay birthday cakes. He's like, let them not make a birthday cake. We already won this fight. And here we are. I'm the same as you. You grew up as a Minnesota hippie, but I grew up as a Greenwich Village boy, where this was ground zero of acceptance for gay and trans and alternative lifestyles in the country. And this was always something, as a little boy, that was acceptable to my family. And we never thought twice about it. We always, as a matter of fact, we were known as being one of the first places that would hire anybody of any kind of whatever, alternative lifestyle. And all of a sudden I'm like, no, I don't want my daughter racing against someone who's been through male puberty, and I don't trust the science. And Periel and I, used to fight about this. And all of a sudden now, I'm on the side of the people who hate the trans. I don't want to be associated with the people who hate the trans. I'm not one of them. No. I don't want anything to do with them.
And I refuse that.
What they've done to us, right?
Yeah. And I said, the day after the piece came out in the Wall Street Journal, the first thing I tweeted was, yes, I voted for Trump, but if, as Brianna Wu says, may happen, hormone treatment is limited for trans adults and trans kids who've been through the old-fashioned appropriate medical assessment and process, I'll be out marching in the streets. We don't want to take a step toward bigotry. We don't want to take a step toward preventing people from seeking care that at this point, my God, they absolutely need. You don't take people off hormones they've been on for 20 years. I don't think that'll happen. No. I truly don't. But, I just want it to be clear that I'll be out there alongside them.
Yeah, the problem is that very few causes ever declare victory and disband.
Too much money at stake. There was too much money coming into LGBTQ plus rights, and they had to develop, some sort of global campaign.
I'm less, I don't actually agree with you on that. You could be right. I think there's something more in just human nature, that we have a cause, we have a camaraderie, we kind of enjoy in some way being the victim. I hate to say that, but it's part of, and we like having people thrown on their back foot when we accuse them of bigotry. This is just basic bullying, power stuff, and for many reasons, and I'm sure the money as well. There's no reason to want to give up your cause and declare victory. There's always something in it to keep in it. So you're just turning up the magnification on the mic, turn it up, double it, until at some point the rest of the country, like you and me, says, no, enough of this. We've had enough of you, and don't think I'm a bigot. I just think we've gone far enough. So what other issues are you gone? You want to say something, Dan?
Well, I was just saying that I do agree that a lot of people's jobs depend on these causes. People that are, heads of these organizations. If racism ended tomorrow, Al Sharpton, wouldn't have it.
Al Sharpton, who got $500,000 from Kamala Harris. This is another thing. The corruption. That Al Sharpton is an MSNBC quote unquote journalist now, and he's interviewing the presidential candidate. And she has donated $500,000 to his, whatever Al Sharpton's organization is called. And if this was a Donald Trump story, can you imagine the outrage? And I guarantee you tomorrow morning on Morning Joe, Mika and Joe and all Mike Barnacle, whatever the name, John Heilemann, all those guys, they're not going to break ranks with Al Sharpton, I don't think. And anyway, so what other issues get your goat that turned you towards Trump?
Oh, my goat is entirely fixated on speech. Everything came back to it. Everything. It was the root of every single issue. It was at the root of COVID. It was at the root of, the social media interference of the Biden administration. it was over and over and over again, these threats that, oh, that's misinformation, which may be proved correct 2 months from now, but we can take it out of the public sphere. This terrifies me like nothing ever has.
Yeah, I agree
And
with
living in Tim Waltz's Minnesota, I certainly felt it during COVID. We were in a little bubble of just us where we did not dare speak. There was a hotline set up to report us for any kind of real or imagined, active or thought crime against COVID rules and regulations.
Really?
Wow, that's
Yes.
like McCarthyism, huh?
Oh, it was kind of a Stasi technique, right? It's like, here's a number. If you feel like your neighbors are doing something they shouldn't be, that violates these brand new executive actions that I passed down by the, file full earlier today, please give us a call.
But just to be clear, these were actions, not speech, that you were encouraged to report.
You were encouraged to report anything that you felt violated COVID rules.
Okay.
And at a certain point, saying things against the vaccine were considered out of bounds.
It's insane.
Saying that the vaccine did not prevent transmission. The Biden administration said this is misinformation. We can take it offline. We can penalize people in terms of removing their ability to speak. People weren't being thrown in jail, but, did feel like we were kind of starting down a ski run that I didn't want to continue on.
It's terrible when science becomes a partisan issue. And it's not actually the first time. Climate change, you would think, would just be treated as an objective matter. It's become very much a partisan issue. All environmental things, nuclear energy, which obviously I think everybody knows we should have more nuclear energy. This has been a partisan issue for a very long time. Even abortion.
Totally.
If I want to talk about the fact I read somewhere, the fetus may feel pain at a certain number of weeks. It may be painful for the fetus to have an abortion. Shouldn't we? What are the implications of that?
Anesthetize it.
Yeah. And isn't it creepy to think that, well, it's not alive, it doesn't deserve protection, but we will anesthetize. Well, what is it if you have to? Anyway, so
exactly. No, I've made this point. Yeah.
So these are, but it's similar to what you're describing. If I say that, people will come down on me like I'm some kind of right-wing crazy person. Listen, this is a scientific question. I understand why you want to circle the wagons around this issue, because it might actually lead to a comeuppance of your view, at least, your time window of when you think abortion should be allowed. But you know what? That's not an excuse. It's not a partisan issue. It's science. Debunk the science or say, yeah, they do feel pain and I'm okay with it anyway. Like, deal with it, but don't correct it.
Which no one wants to confront. So I do want to say, people come down on me all the time, and they have every right. That's not a violation of my free speech. People can yell at me. People can, hate me for what I say. I can suffer the consequences in just about every area of my life. I get that. The issue for me was that I saw government trying to control speech. And I saw two candidates, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, saying outright, we want more control over social media. We want to exempt misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech from the First Amendment. And Tim Walz claimed they already are, which is incorrect, acts like they already are, and was sort of moving toward, we're going to take control of this. And I just found that so sinister. put that together with the hotline, put that together with these disinformation czars. At one point, I was contacted on Twitter by a woman named Renee DiResta. And she said, I want you to take down thus and such that you have said because it is misinformation. I'm like, who the hell are you? And it turns out she's was some misinformation professor or, cabinet member at Princeton, I believe, and had been empowered to do this.
That's insane.
But you mentioned that it was that the people have every right to, in the private sphere, to come after you, not hire you, and so forth. But they might have that right, but that's not really an ideal way that we should structure our society.
God, no. It's not. It's not.
And Trump can't change that. But I mean, you were lashing out perhaps against that as well in voting for Trump. I don't know, but
maybe. Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm going to say you guys saved us. Comedy was the prow of the ship that said, no, we have to, we say what we want, and then we let the chips fall. And comedians on both sides of the political divide did that. And I was tearful watching people like Dave Chappelle, like Ricky Gervais, who, do I always love it? Well, yeah, I always love them. But, there are some that I don't, but it's still, you're getting up there, you're speaking, you're saying these things. And the reason that it's so powerful is that you say the unsayable, and that we have to be able to do that. We have to. And that's, I thought right around 2022, that's what saved us.
Yeah, well, Jon Stewart, I was surprised, came out even to defend Tony Hinchcliffe for what was a pretty harsh joke about Puerto Rico,
I wouldn't have defended him.
Yeah.
Defending his right to say it, or defending that it was funny? Or neither of the
He
above?
defended him at all counts. He said, he was pushing back on the people who thought that this ought to be something that people judged and factored into their political analysis of who to vote for. I would say that's a fair way to describe what Stewart was saying. As a comedian, how can you hold it? You didn't see that, Dan?
I didn't see Stewart say that.
I did a whole thing about it.
I heard the Tony Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, and I want to just second what Dan said. It's true that people have a right in their private lives to do whatever they want, but I don't respect that at all. We all know that. I mean, there used to be a maximum. We talked about it on the show that I don't like what you say, but I'll defend with my life your right to say it. We all imagine that there's wisdom in the Bill of Rights, and we should all try to carry the spirit of the Bill of Rights in our private lives. I, as an employer, have the rights to treat people unfairly, and yet I still feel like if somebody accuses them of something, they should have the right to confront the person who accused them, and if it's not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, I feel like it should be as close to that as it can be before I take somebody's livelihood away, and I feel like I should let them speak. I mean, I'm informed by all these concepts, even if they have to be somehow shaped to be practical in a private setting. I don't say to myself, that's all irrelevant. I mean, and certainly we understand, especially in academia.
Well, that's what
you understand that the clash of ideas is how truth emerges.
But that's the thing I think that's so disappointing.
Galileo had no rights. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I think that's what's really devastating. When you live in this, as I did my entire life, this really pretty progressive left-wing world where
you're putting it mildly.
Whoa, and critical thinking and intellectual
critical thinking, I don't know about that.
And intellectual inquiry, and at universities and all of these things, and then suddenly you learn it's all fucking bullshit. It's devastating, right? And who the hell wants to vote for Donald Trump? I mean,
your husband. All right.
well, yeah, I mean, some people do, but I certainly was not one of those people.
But you didn't vote for Donald Trump.
No, I didn't. But I'm saying that, why does that have to be my option? How come I have to get stuck with that now? Because everybody on the far left has lost their fucking minds.
Well, they believe in free speech when it comes to vicious anti-Israel protests. That all of the universities found their sea legs on free speech when it came to the protests that we saw.
That's right.
Other than that, I don't think they care much about free speech.
And
did you have much of that?
I gotta say, so do I. Vicious anti-Semitism without direct threats is protected by the First Amendment.
I'm with you. But I find it angering that the universities pretend that they're allowing it because of free speech principles.
Yeah.
When it's obviously an outrageous lie. And this is a total pretext. If these were pro-life protests or anti-trans protests or any number of other issues, they would have stopped them.
I would love to see somebody on Columbia stopping someone and not allowing them to walk on campus for any other reason than being a Zionist, and how fast they would shut that shit down.
As they have. And we heard, I should probably inform myself as to what actually was said, because I just kind of glanced at the headline, but apparently Schumer was in contact with Shafiq at Columbia and essentially saying, well, this is really just a Republican issue. We'll manage it until the election or whatever, something like that. Meaning that he never said anything to her about, there's free speech principles at stake here. We know it wasn't that long ago that at Berkeley Law School, they had a rule that said no Zionist would speak at any campus group or 20 different campus groups, not about Zionism, about any subject. If you were a Zionist, and the universities, they didn't care about free speech then. They didn't care.
And how fast did it escalate into Jews getting locked into the library at Peter Cooper? I mean, it's
Cooper Union?
Sorry, thank you. Cooper Union.
Who's Peter Cooper?
That's Peter Cooper Village.
Yeah,
one of your boyfriends?
It's like Stuyvesant Town.
Yeah, I meant
you can get good
Cooper
housing
Union.
there for a reasonable.
Yeah, I have to say, there's all those stories. I know that they're largely true, but I also, some of the stories.
No.
Yeah.
Look, they're true. And I know that they're true because I've seen them with my own eyes.
So that story, we saw the video, right?
And I also saw videos that Shiley, my niece who just graduated from Harvard, sent me from out her window.
No, for instance, it's sort of go back to Poland. But actually, it happened outside the university.
Okay, but listen.
So we got to be very careful about those things.
That's fine. But I'm saying that oftentimes this escalated into actual violence against Jews.
Well, no, we'll let you go after this. It was that I don't know, is she trans? I can't remember. Kimani James.
Yeah.
Said there's a Zionist here. Take one step forward. That one,
Yeah.
It turned out they had interviewed him. I think it was him at the time, and he just went on and on about how he thinks Zionists should die. And I'm like, I hope I don't kill a Zionist. And I said at the time, this is right out of what a kind of manifesto you'd find about someone who actually did kill some people. That he said this to the administrators, and they covered it up. The only reason it ever came out was because he was a knucklehead and taped his own interview and then put it on Instagram or whatever it was. But to think of where, if any other person had said such things about killing any other group on campus, they would have thrown him right out of there. Oh, it's just free speech. Come on. This really angers me. I had a big fight with some free speech people about this, and I felt like, you can defend it because it is free speech should be defended, but you need to call them out that they're just using this free speech as a pretext. It's very disturbing to me. All right. Anything else? I mean, been a good conversation.
It's really complicated, and I want to get back to something Dan said about that hotline in Minnesota because, yes, it was about actions, but really, everyone was locked away in their house. They weren't observing anything that anyone else was doing, supposedly. So what they were doing was relying on things like, well, they're the kind of person who would do that because of what they've said. And so there's this interplay of, you start attacking people's speech and then suddenly you're putting them in a category based on, maybe you're guilty of this because of who you are, or the questions that you're asking. Just all felt very, conversations of others. It felt like we were being eavesdropped upon and judged. I want everyone to speak.
Okay.
Wait, so did you hold your nose and vote for Trump, or are you optimistic that they might do something positive for this country?
Oh, well, I am.
Or do you have a MAGA hat hidden under the table?
I don't have a MAGA hat. No. I'm mildly optimistic that he chose a vice presidential candidate who was smarter than himself. I like that. I liked that he chose someone articulate and intelligent, however many times I may disagree with the man. I thought that the coalition that came together, which was odd, I have my own problems with RFK. I think traditional vaccines, really, we don't want to just rip those out of the system before we assess. I think Tulsi Gabbard is fabulous, and bringing together different people with different ideas and really spanning a large swath of, this is what America wants. America wants to ask questions about the healthcare we're receiving. America wants to get spending under control. America wants freedom of speech. I voted for those things. For the rest of it, I was just like, oh, really? I'm voting against the Democrats because this is off the rails. The crackdown on speech is my number one, but the kind of reordering of society, I'm not thrilled with the way that family and community ties are being assailed day to day. There just seems to be something cultural happening in the progressive Democrat movement. It's very angry. It's very, I say the right things and therefore I can do all the wrong ones. I have the right yard sign. So the fact that I live in 5,000 square feet and have 9 cars and go to Europe 3 times a year, but I support Greta Thunberg. So therefore I've said the sacrament, I'm good. It really felt like it needed to be stopped in its tracks. And that's what I voted for.
Well, yeah. I mean, if Trump were to vaporize and leave the earth tomorrow, he has already done something very good. The left is in a full-blown reckoning now.
Yeah.
He won the popular vote. There's no more excuses, no more electoral college, and no more there's nothing anybody can say anymore. A majority of the country doesn't want this shit, and we can only imagine what that number would have been if Trump were a more appealing messenger, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly
people like imagine you would love to be able to vote somebody who felt this way, pro-Israel and against censorship and all this stuff, but you hate Trump. So this has been a very good thing, and I'm with you. I hope he's a good president.
I also dislike Greta Thunberg, for the record.
You like Greta?
No, I
dislike. Not anymore.
I dislike Greta Thunberg.
You liked her before.
I never really liked her.
Well, I would imagine that all those people whose friendship you like, now you really you've come out of the closet having voted for Trump. I mean, I think you might have to start from scratch in terms of your friendships and your social circle.
Me? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be your friend.
Okay, good, because I need some, and you seem cool. I'd be very pleased.
Free comment.
This was the final step. I live in a place that is so blue. You can't imagine how uniformly progressive my
Oh,
community is.
we're in Greenwich Village. We understand.
Okay.
We've had customers more than once come over and curse out other customers because they overheard that they were Trump supporters in some way. Just overheard their private conversations. They came out with full sanctimony and I don't know what's the word, like what's the word when you feel you have the right to just
Self-righteousness?
license to just point your finger and call people names. It's
Yeah.
just unbelievable.
Almost like it. I had someone tell me this morning that I voted immorally.
Yeah.
And, someone I care about very much. But this was the final step for me. My husband is a Southerner. He's always been a little bit more conservative than I. We moved away from the Democrats in sync. He then, a little bit more to the right.
Mhm.
We've sat at people's tables and in parties and at work functions for years and heard people talk about how all Republicans are stupid and they should die and they voted for Trump, and I hate them, and one person said I'd rather have a serial killer next door. And same thing about Southerners, Southern men, they're all racist. They want to relitigate the Civil War, and no one seemed to acknowledge that we were there. It was just like, oh, but they'll go, they're going to be good people and they'll go along.
This is
But-
you just reminded me of an argument that I've made many times. It's and then I really will let you go. So for instance, if you were to say, I don't think we should be taking so many immigrants from these countries that have so much fundamental jihadist Islam, right? You say, what are you, a bigot? They'll come to America and they will become, the tolerance will just come over them. And, how could you possibly say such a thing? You can't assume anybody's opinion because of something like that, unless it's a white Southerner. If it's a white Southerner, these beliefs
Yes.
are so stubborn, generations won't change it. Doesn't so the only people it's open we're allowed to be bigoted against are white Southerners. We know they can't be trusted on race. But come over from Somalia, where they literally preach Jew hatred on the airwaves 24/7. No, it'll be fine. What kind of person are you to judge that? Well, it's like I don't have anything against anybody Somalian or anybody Muslim, but they are raised on this stuff. I'm concerned. I'm just concerned, like you would be if the white Southerners were raised on KKK stuff. You'd be concerned. You wouldn't want to take any white people from Europe from a KKK country. I remember what it was like during apartheid. I remember how we judged South Africans, white people, right? Anyway, they're so full of it.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I live. And, all of those people apparently assumed that I would shut up and do the right thing in the election. And so I suspect I've lost the last raft of, people now this week who
Did
just
you get
said,
angry when Trump won? When Trump won, I found myself getting angry at all the people who have been giving me a hard time for so many years. I'm like, you've been treating me like an idiot all this time. And look, everything I told you was right. Everything that I told you.
No, they're still treating me like an idiot. So what would I get angry at? I'm still receiving notes that say, I got one this morning telling me that he didn't pay contractors in the 1960s. It's I'm not angry. I'm heartbroken. I lost tons of people I really care about. And it was their choice, and I don't know how to be otherwise. I'm honest. I say what I think and I do what I think is right. And this was the best solution I could come up with in the circumstances I had.
Was not a close call for you to vote for Trump, given perhaps some of the many things you may not like about him?
Yeah, it was. If Kamala Harris had chosen a different vice presidential candidate, I might have voted differently.
Josh Shapiro.
Oh, I think I'd have been there. I do. Yeah, I have a lot of experience with Tim Walz. I find him both dumb and dangerous, and the fact that he would be a step away from the presidency was just, it was like being there, only the dark Freddy Krueger version. Like it was so unacceptable to me. The fact that she made such a poor decision seemed like a harbinger of something, poor to come. And so that was the moment where I said, okay, I think I have to steel myself for the fact that the better ticket is going to be Trump and Vance, who I didn't like at first. And then the more I watched him, the more I listened, I thought, oh, he's made some mistakes, but he's really young and he's very smart, and I need to give this a shot.
Yeah, I didn't like him at first either. I'm still not crazy about him, but we'll see how he turns out. You know why I don't like him most of all? Says somebody at the door.
That must be Ardenia.
He's humorless, and it's not because I own a comedy club. There's something about a humorless personality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm very cautious about that because humor is a big part of emotional intelligence. It's a very important trait. All our great leaders, Abraham Lincoln, Obama, whoever it is, Winston Churchill, they're funny.
Yeah.
Because there's a wisdom that comes out when you're funny. When you have wisdom, it comes out very often humor, because wisdom is also often a way of seeing that there's opposites that are both true at the same time, and seeing that things are there's half truths, and humor is one way of illustrating those things, right? Like Jewish jokes. I don't know if we're all Jews here, but very often Jewish jokes have that way of, like, a wry way of bringing out something that's hard to express. And he shows no appreciation or ability with humor, but we shall see. Anyway, and Bauer, my accountant's name was Bauer. Bauer is a German name. Your husband's German?
No, this is my ex-husband's name.
Ah, was he German?
He was German, and I kind of, walked into it, had published a book by the time we got a divorce, and said to him, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep going with it. He's like, that's fine.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure to meet you, and really appreciate your column. Who James Taranto was at the Journal that edited with you? He
is. He actually saw a post that I made on Twitter and wrote to me and asked for it.
He is one of the country's great geniuses. He's not a household name. He is an amazing intellect, and he is hilarious. What's about humor?
Really?
I mean, oh my God!
Oh.
You didn't know that?
Well, now I want to invite him to our circle. If you three are my friends now, we can invite James.
Oh yeah, he is very funny, very funny. He used to write a column every other day or so before he became the editor of the op-ed page, whatever you call it. All right, so we're gonna let you go. It was very much a pleasure to meet you. If you ever get to New York, we'd love to host you and anybody you bring with you at the Comedy Cellar. So that's it. And where can people? You have a Twitter account? Say it again. I
am Ann Bauer Writer. So ANNBAUER, and then writer like the scribe.
So just flame her with your hateful
tweets.
Join the masses who get joy in their hearts from flaming me.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Send your emails to podcast@comedycellar.com. You have to wait until it says finish uploading, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you. Oh, do you guys have those videos downloaded over there?